Hey, and welcome to the Winning Daily Podcast. We're here for April the 10th. We got a whole lot to go over on this Saturday. Whole lot of stuff. We got some horse racing. We got some boxing. We got a little Major League Baseball in there. A whole lot of soccer to get into. And then we're going to get into our DFS players of the day. So let's start out in soccer because we're going to cover a little bit of today's games and a little bit of tomorrow's action. Let's start out in Serie with Sampdoria, plus 240, draw no bet versus Napoli. Really like this bet here. Napoli really let one slip out of their fingers versus Juventus during the week on Wednesday. This probably really puts them solidly out of the top four and a spot in the Champions League. They'll really have to work hard to catch at Atlanta or Juventus, maybe even AC Milan, but I don't know if it's there. I'm looking for a little bit of a letdown. I'd like for this matchup to have been somebody a little bit better than Sampdoria, but Sampdoria is a top 10 team in Serie A, so I think they might be able, if Napoli isn't on their game, to give them some problems. So that 240 draw no bet, really like, because I think this could be a Sampdoria upset. Next up, we're going to keep on riding our boys Roma, who have just dominated the lower half of Serie A. And we got Roma minus 150 versus Bologna. Bologna is not quite as bad as the lower half of Serie A that Roma has dominated, but they're still a worse team than Roma, so I look for Roma to cruise and get a pretty good price, the minus 150. The only really worry here is Roma had a Europa League match on Thursday. Can they handle the double up? I think they'll be able to. They've been able to handle that sort of thing all season long, playing really well in Serie A. I look for that to continue. So the minus 150, I find a whole lot of value in. Next up, let's move to Germany. Couple good matchups in Germany. We're going to start out with Stuttgart. Double chance here. Stuttgart and the draw, minus 110 versus Dortmund. I think last week I had finally had enough of Dortmund and their losing ways. They played pretty well in Champions League during the week, but they've just been awful in the Bundesliga. Now, Stuttgart did have a nice little run. For the last couple weeks, they've fallen back, but I just don't think Dortmund's up for it. I think they've sort of quit on the Bundesliga season. There really is no chance for them to get into those Champions League spots. They have a lame duck coach in there, so I really like this Stuttgart spot on the double chance at even money here at minus 110. So you get Stuttgart, you get the draw at minus 110. Really like that value there. Next, probably the underrated matchup of the weekend. Frankfurt playing Wolfsburg really should be a great game. Really excited to tune in for this one. It's about to kick off here in a little bit, but I'm going with Frankfurt minus 145, draw no bet over Wolfsburg. Just really love the way Frankfurt's been playing of late. Really think they're the better team here, though. Wolfsburg really is an entertaining watch. I just think Frankfurt is the better team. I think we saw that last week with Frankfurt's big win. So Frankfurt minus 145, draw no bet here, because I do think this might be a high-scoring affair draw, but I like Frankfurt to come out on top at the minus 145. All right, a lot of stuff to do in La Liga, plus the big one, the El Clasico, and I do have a bet on that one, but we're going to start out with Real Villadolid at plus 120 versus Granada. Just like this bet here, Granada had a tough matchup versus Manchester United in the Europa League on Thursday. Think Valladolid will be able to handle this. I do think they're about even sides on talent, so I think with that extra game that Granada had to play during the week, they won't come out as sharp. I really like this 120 value here, so I'd lean that way to take against Granada and take Real Villadolid. All right, moving on. Real Betis versus Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid has just been terrible. I'm no longer going to take them, but I am going to take both teams to score here. I just don't think Atletico Madrid can keep Real Betis off the scoreboard. I'm sure Atletico Madrid will find a way to get a goal. So instead of continue to lose money as Atletico Madrid continues to go down the drain, as my money does, as I keep betting on them, waiting for them to turn it around. I'm going to take the minus 105, both teams to score here. All right, let's get to the big one, El Clasico. And we're going to ride Barcelona here. Barcelona has been playing great football in the second half of La Liga. Really, if they could come away with a win, I would favor them to take the La Liga title. If you can find a way to get money on it before La Liga kicks off today, I would take Barcelona overall to win the La Liga title. And this value here on the three-way at plus 125, just love Barcelona here, especially with the way they've been playing. Real Madrid still down a couple big-time guys in this matchup, so I think Barcelona comes in and maybe snakes this one, so really good value at the plus 125. All right, let's go to England and the Premier League. We're going to take another one of our teams that has cost us money a lot this year, and Tottenham at plus 190 versus Manchester United. If you remember this game back at the start of the season, probably in the first month or two, I don't really remember when it was, but Tottenham just dominated them. The Spurs killed them like 6-1, so really hope Mourinho has these guys ready to go for action here. So Tottenham plus 190 versus Man United, and then tomorrow, really interesting matchup. West Ham plus 105, draw no bet versus Leicester City. This should be a great matchup, and I just love the way West Ham's playing. They've become a favorite team of mine. They've been one of my favorite teams to bet on all year long in the Premier League. They've really won some solid money. I just think this is a really, really good team. I think Leicester thinks they're already probably safe in those top four European spots for the Champions League. So I look for West Ham to come out there and maybe snake them a little bit, but this one does have a lot of feel of the draw here, so that's why I'm protecting myself a little bit with the draw no bet. But West Ham plus 105, draw no bet over Leicester City. All right, let's get into the boxing. We're going to start out in England, and the gentleman, John Hedges, we're going to go with a minus 175 KO versus Stanko Yermolek. Really like John Hedges. Great young fighter. Really disappointed a little bit with a decision in his first fight. I watched it, but I think they lowered his competition a little bit here, and I think he'll be able to get the KO. So I think it's worthwhile to take that 175 and the KO for the gentleman John Hedges here. All right, back to America. We're going to take the Effie Ogbia versus Brian Howard fight, and we're going to go under 5 rounds, minus 110. Both of these guys really, really big punchers. I don't really trust either guy's chin all that much, so somebody's going to land something big early, and they are going to go down. So I'm going with the under 5 rounds in the Ogbia Howard fight. Next up, JJ Rodriguez. We're going to take a little bit of a upset here, and JJ Rodriguez plus 500 over Jerwin and Jacas, the Filipino fighter who they are trying to get to be Manny Pacquiao, but every time I watch him fight, I just don't quite see it. He's been he had a draw, I believe, 2 fights ago, and I just don't like the way he looks. JJ's a tough fighter. I don't know if he's all that talented a fighter, but if Jerwin's not on his game, I think JJ could spring this upset, so I really do like the value here at plus 500. All right, we're going to take a little bit of a different tact here, and Jaron Ennis, if anybody's watched Jaron Ennis fight, he's got just thunder in those hands, but they're moving it up to probably his top competition that he's fought so far this year, and Sergey Lipnitz, and I just think this will be a points decision. A whole lot of value in getting that points decision for Jaron. So we're going to take the Jaron in his plus 350 on the points versus Sergey Lipnitz, and think this one goes the distance despite Jaron's ridiculous power. But I think Sergey will be able to handle it. He's not really a guy who gets knocked down or knocked out all that much. So I think this will go the distance, and good value there for plus 350 on the points here for J-Rod. And lastly, the big fight of the day, Joe Smith Jr. is fighting for a title, but I don't think so. I like this value here in Maximilian Volkov at plus 260. They really are both sort of high-end journeyman fighters. Joe Smith probably has a little bit better competition wins overall, but I don't think this separation is all that much. Really, anytime both has stepped up to real elite competition, they've both lost. So I just think the value here at plus 260 for Maximov is really there for two fighters that I don't think are separated by all that much. So that's what we got for the boxing. We got 5 fights on the card to bet on. Let's move to the horse racing, the big Arkansas Derby and the less important Lexington Stakes, the last Derby preps of the year before we get into the Kentucky Derby. And we'll have a big Kentucky Derby show with Rita Cinema still on the old school horse racing scene. So she'll be in to give us horse racing picks when the Derby comes around. But last big prep race for the Derby, the Arkansas Derby, and less so the Lexington Stakes. I don't know if really any of those Lexington Stakes horses will go into the Derby, but we'll see who ends up winning. There are a couple sort of really young horses who haven't really run a lot of stakes race entered in this one. We won't be taking that one, but let's start at Oaklawn and race 6, the Carousel Stakes. We're going with a win place show bet on the number 5 Edgeway. Just really think he's the class here in the Carousel Stakes. Really like his speed figures, think he'll come out on top. So decent value there on the win place show in the Carousel Stakes, race 6. All right, let's go to the race 9 at Oaklawn, the Oaklawn Mile. We're going to go with an exacta box here with the 5-7, the 5 being Blackberry Wine, the 7 being Pioneer Spirit. Really, if you look at this race, Blackberry Wine is a step above everybody else in the speed numbers and winning-wise, but I think Pioneer Spirit might give it a little bit of run for his money, so we're also going to take on Oaklawn Race 9, the Oaklawn Mile, a win-place show bet on the number 7 Pioneer Spirit. So we got an exacta box on race 9, the Oaklawn Mile, with the 5-7, and then they win play show bet on Pioneer Spirit. Just really like Pioneer Spirit, was really good in his last race, so be on the lookout for the number 7 Pioneer Spirit in the Oaklawn Mile. All right, let's get to the Arkansas Derby, and this one has a real big favorite in Concert Tour who looks really like the class of the Derby field. And he's a really heavy favorite, so we're going to do Oaklawn Race 12, the Arkansas Derby. We're going to start out with a trifecta box and only go with 3 horses here. The number 2, Caddo River, the number 3, Hosier, and the number 5, Concert Tour. So that's what we like right there in the trifecta box. Caddo River, the number 2, Hauser, the number 3, and Concert Tour, the number 5. And then we're going to do a win play show bet on Caddo River. I really like this horse. It's going to try to get out front and take the lead. We'll see if Concert Tour takes a bait and tries to duel at the front. Also, I wouldn't be afraid to put a number 3 on the Hauser there, because if Caddo River can get this speed out front, I think Concert Tour take the bait, and as Howard stalking there, really good closing speed, might be able to sneak up and get into the mix there. But I really like the number 2, Caddo River here. But if you're doing anything, I think Concert Tour really is the class of this. But there's not a whole lot of money to be won when you're taking Concert Tour. He's already a 3-5 favorite on the morning line. I'm sure by race time he'll be even worse than that. I don't see, it's a really small field, so I am just assuming most of the money is going to come in on Concert Tour. So maybe take a chance on the number 2 or the number 3 horse in this race. And lastly, we're going to go to Keeneland, race 9, the Lexington Stakes. There are a couple young horses in there who have really nice speed figures, but that's not the one I'm going with. I'm going with more the veteran one, Proxy. It just finished 4th in the Louisiana Derby. So we're going with a win play show bet for the number 7 Proxy there. All right, let's go to the Kansas City Royals in Major League Baseball, plus 125 versus the Chicago White Sox here. Really like this bet. The Royals have been playing pretty solid baseball up front. The White Sox have been a little hot and cold. So I think the really good value in the plus 125 here for the Chicago White Sox. And then we're going to go with the Milwaukee Brewers at minus 105 versus the St. Louis Cardinals. Just like this matchup, especially with Carlos Martinez on the mound. He was awful in his last start. I look for him to be awful again, so I think there's a whole lot of value there in the Milwaukee Brewers at minus 105. All right, let's go to our DFS plays of the day, and let's start out in the NBA with the point guards. And right now, Russell Westbrook, is he expensive? Yes, but are you looking at the numbers he's putting up? It's very hard to leave him out of some lineups here. So I think you definitely have to have Russell Westbrook, dropping down a handful of thousands here. And look at Damian Lillard versus Detroit Pistons. Think he'll have a really big game. Think there's a lot of value there. So the 9,000 for Damian Lillard, really, really like. And if you're looking on the cheap end here, Dennis Smith's going to get the start today versus Portland. The backcourt for Portland's defense is a little shaky, so maybe Dennis Smith can get some fake numbers. If there's anything the Pistons do well, it's lose games and get numbers for players who are good at getting numbers and losing games. So I'd throw Dennis Smith in there at a 4,000 value on FanDuel. Pretty good. All right. Shooting guard wise, I'm looking a little bit cheap here. I would not pass up Donovan Mitchell with the way he's been playing of late at 8,500 on the shooting guard style, but really most of my lineups, I think I'm going to feature Wiggins in a bunch at 7,300 here, or Josh Jackson at 4,500, but really I'm looking at Seth Curry here at 4,200 versus OKC. This feels like a big game. His defensive liabilities won't be as exploited here, so I'd put Seth Curry in a whole lot of lineups with some Andrew Wiggins and Donovan Mitchell mixed in there, and maybe a little Josh Jackson. Okay, on to the small forwards. Kevin Durant made his comeback a little bit ago, and he looked great, so he's going to continue to look great versus this Lakers team. I think he'll have a big day at 9,300, so I throw him in some lineups, but really I couldn't find any of these high-end small forwards that I'd be throwing money at, so I'm going to save a lot of money here. I'm going to ride Jeff Green at 5,700. He's getting a handful of minutes with James Harden out. Sadiq Bey, I don't know if he gives you anything other than points. I believe he had a 20-point game the other day and had like 0 rebounds and 0 assists. So you'll get some points. I don't know if you'll get much else, but if he can get you that 20 points, you'll get your fantasy points you need for the 5,400, or Joe Harris at 5,300. I think I'd be more likely to use Harris and Jeff Green here if I'm not going to use Kevin Durant, but really light in the small forwards today. So I think there will be a lot of Jeff Green usage. God help us all here. So into the power forward, and I don't love this one too much either. I think we could save some money here to use a Russell Westbrook at the point guard spot if we need to. Christian Wood at 7,800 still presents value. He throws up double-doubles really easy. I'd look at Pogo. Pogoszewski's been really good for OKC, and he's got the green light, especially with those lineups that OKC's throwing out there right now. I'd really look at Jay Crowder a little bit in lineup, but I think Sekou Doumbouya will be playing and starting for Detroit today, and Doumbouya's per-minute numbers are really, really good. So you might get a real high nice value day out of a guy who's 3,600. So Doumbouya and Pogo, I'm really using in a lot of lineups, and then mixing in a little bit of Christian Wood and Jay Crowder in there. All right. Let's go to centers, and 3 highlighted here. The most expensive one, Joel Embiid. I'm definitely putting in some lineups, but I'd be really, really nervous. Those minutes are going to be limited today with the easy matchup versus the OKC. I'm dropping down and putting Rashawn Holmes in a lot of lineups. He should get a lot of minutes with Gobert in there, so he has a center matchup, so he won't be too exploited. It should be a good matchup, and minutes there for the 6,500 value. I'm also throwing in James Wiseman. I think he'll get a good dose of minutes here versus Houston. He's been getting more and more minutes of late, so that 4,800, nice value on James Wiseman there. I think I'd use him a whole whole lot. All right, those are our NBA players of the day in DFS. Let's go to Major League Baseball and start out with the pitchers. We got two pitchers highlighted here for the main slate in FanDuel. One, Ian Anderson for Atlanta. Really like this matchup. I really almost pulled the trigger on the Braves today for a bet. I might end up talking myself into that a little bit later, but really like Ian Anderson for the Braves. I think that's a really good matchup. I don't think I'd use any of the really high dollar guys in Eflin or Urias. I definitely would not use Steven Matz versus the Angels, especially the way the Angels are hitting. But I think there's really good value there in Ian Anderson. And then I'm dropping down, and I still believe in Chris Paddack. Really was a big-time prospect a couple years ago. Didn't have a great year last year, but maybe that's a little COVID-related. He's in a non-pressure spot to really carry them now that the Padres have added a handful of ace guys. So I look for Paddack to really have a really solid year. So you can get good value there. You get the Padres versus the Rangers, who just got no hit the other night. So look for Paddack to have a big day, and that 6,900 price tag, pretty good for a pitcher. Let's move to first catcher, and we really like Hosmer today versus the Rangers. We're going to milk a handful of matchups here, a whole lot of Cincinnati guys, a whole lot of Baltimore and Boston guys, and then throw in a couple of Angels in there as well, and Toronto. So going to be milking a whole lot of matchups, so you'll hear a lot of those guys as my favorites of the day. We also have Vladimir Guerrero highlighted. We have Jared Walsh highlighted for the Angels. Really on the cheap side of things, Tucker Barnhart and Joey Votto are presented pretty good prices here for Cincinnati versus Arizona. Really like that matchup. And if you're looking really dirt cheap here, Rowdy Tellez for the Blue Jays, I think would be pretty, if you're really looking to save money at the first base catcher spot, you could probably do much worse than the 2,100 he's going to cost you. But I think I'm going to put a lot into Votto here, would be my main guy, and then a little bit into Hosmer, and then sort of mix and match the other guys I mentioned in Guerrero and Jared Walsh. So those would be my big picks at first base. On to second base, I got a couple guys highlighted here. Jonathan India for the Reds. Really like this matchup at 3,200. I know he's expensive, but he's been playing really good baseball right now. But the main one I'm going to put into my lineups will be Enrique Hernandez for the Boston Red Sox. This Boston-Baltimore game should be a real shootout, so I really look for that one to explode in the runs category. So Enrique Hernandez at 2,900, you get pretty good value there. On the cheap side, Ha-Sung Kim for the Padres and Roman Urias for the Baltimore Orioles. I really look at Roman here for the Orioles, because I think they will be able to bounce around Boston and Garrett Anderson for sure. So if you're looking on the cheap, be sure to throw these Baltimore guys. You might not know who they are, and they might not be in the league in 5 years, but Boston pitching might not be in the league in 5 years as well. So don't be scared to play some of these Baltimore guys, especially on the cheap side of things. But I think I'm using a lot of Enrique Hernandez at second base. On to third base, I think this is where we're going to spend a little bit of money here. Both Rendon and Moustakas I probably will have in a majority of my lineups, and then throw in the Rafael Devers and Rio Ruiz in a couple of those lineups for sure. But I'm definitely throwing in Rendon and Moustakas today. So that's where I'm spending a little bit of my money for sure. So Rendon, Moustakas, and then on the cheap, throw in a couple lineups, Dever and Rio Ruiz for the Baltimore Orioles. On shortstop, you'll catch this theme here. We're going to spend on Bogarts and the 3,100. We're also going to spend on Eugenio Suarez, the 3,100. So we're going to take those two guys in those nice matchups, and then sprinkle in a little Bo Bichette at 3,000. But I think Bogarts and Suarez are better values than Bo Bichette, who's up to $3,000. And if I'm going on the cheap, I think Freddie Galvis. So Bogarts, Suarez, Galvis, Bichette would be sort of the order I play them in lineups, and how many lineups lineups, I'd play them in. All right, on to the outfielders, and Mike Trout's definitely going to get a handful of plays today, along with Nick Castellanos and JD Martinez. Those would be my three big money guys where I mix and match in outfield and the util spots. Anthony Stastander for Baltimore would be definitely looked at. I don't love the 3,400 price tag, but he's batting in those power spots to get those RBIs and stuff for the Baltimore Orioles, and I think their run scored, so I think that'll be a nice place to look at. Trey Mancini, I also would look at, along with Cedric Mullins for Baltimore. They're all hovering in the low tier 3,000s. On the cheap side, Alex Verdugo, I don't know if you could trust him, but 2,700 in a matchup where runs are going to be scored. Same with Hunter Renfroe at 2,600. I definitely mix in a couple of those guys. And Lourdes Gurriel for Toronto, I definitely look at with Jose Quintana on the mound for the Angels. I just think that's a pretty good matchup for those Blue Jays, as inconsistent as their hitting has been. All right, that's our DFS players of the day, and that's our show. Be sure to follow us on YouTube and on the Facebook page at Greenlight Network. Be sure to follow us on greenlightnetwork.org. You can find me, Champ Chesterfield, on GLN Champ 5 on Twitter and Instagram. May the odds be ever in your favor. That's our show, and we're out.